Hello and welcome to your Newsmax Daily for Friday, July 11th, 2025. 7/11/25 on your monitor or in your journal. Known in the USA as 7-Eleven Day, established in 2002 by the 7-Eleven convenience stores as a way to celebrate their brand and give back to customers with a free Slurpee and other big discounts today. And did you know that the 7-Eleven stores are a subsidiary of a Japanese holding company? Today is also National French Fry Day, making it Fry Day for real, which also means free fries to go along with your free Slurpee. It's the second of 4 Fridays this month. 3 Fridays from today will be August the 1st. Yesterday, it was Russia's foreign minister, this morning Secretary of State Marco Rubio, meeting with his Chinese counterpart at the Association of Southeast Asian Nations Summit in Malaysia.
Obviously, there are some issues we're going to have to work through, and that's to be expected with countries of our size and scope and influence in the world, two global powers such as the United States and China. But I thought it was a very constructive and positive meeting and gave us some things we can work on together.
Rubio also worked to ease the tariff tensions with all the countries that are participating there in the summit.
If this was us targeting 10 countries or 5 countries, then I would understand why countries would be upset. But the truth of the matter is we're resetting tariff levels with virtually every country in the world. The baseline will take effect the 1st of August, but obviously, as the president's made clear, there are opportunities for adjustments based on arrangements that could be made between now and then.
On Truth Social, President Trump said he's raising tariffs on many Canadian imports to 35%, saying Canada hasn't done enough to stop the flow of fentanyl into the U.S., and he threatened not to support any Republican who opposes the rescissions bill of about $9 billion in cuts to foreign aid and public broadcasters like PBS and NPR. President also said he's going to have a big announcement concerning Russia on Monday as Russia ramped up attacks on Ukraine this week, as I discussed on yesterday's Newsmax Daily. Today, the president and first lady are headed to Texas to witness firsthand the devastation of last week's flash flooding that has now claimed at least 120 lives, many of them children and young adults. As I said yesterday, families completely devastated. Texas Governor Greg Abbott, who will be meeting with the president, said yesterday at least 140 people are still missing as well. Newsmax correspondent Sarah Williamson is there in Kerrville, Texas.
So tragic that now, almost a week to the day later, this search and rescue operation is still ongoing. 120 people now are declared dead, 94 of them in Kerr County. And as we've been moving through the region across the Guadalupe River, speaking to these people, they all have stories, whether it's a tragic story or of loss or an incredible story of survival.
We finished about 10:30 at night, and I was taking a picture, and I saw the lightning, and I knew it was, we had to move.
It was the decision between life and death.
And then, my son was acting like a typical teenager. I was trying to rush him, and he was taking his time, and I was like, let's go, let's move. And we got in an argument, and that argument saved our lives.
And after the quarrel, they called off the camp and headed home. Where was your RV?
It was right there, up there on top.
And was it taken away?
It was taken away. My RV, my business, my truck. But, thank God we didn't die.
The biggest natural disaster in Kerr County's history.
The thing is, I might have lost stuff, but, people lost a lot more.
And although they are a community in mourning, they are also a community of faith and gratitude.
Like, a lot of people say this was an act of God. But it's not an act of God. The people you see helping, the volunteers, the generosity, that's God. They said, what do you need? And I told them, and they showed up. I had heavy equipment showed up. I had the deputy over there. She was parked, and she was like, I want to help.
From deputies to family to complete strangers.
We had this guy it was homeless from New Braunfels, and he showed up. And he was ready to work. He used to have a landscaping business and did trees, and he's been homeless from New Braunfels, and he found a way over here, and he's helping.
So you have the experience, you have the skills that can help here, is that correct?
Ma'am, I used to do tree work and build houses and things, so just a little bit of knowledge about pressure build up.
So as the search and rescue continues, so does the cleanup. It's one in, all in, because as Governor Abbott said, they're Texans and they're not going anywhere until the last person is found. Yeah, and that's just one of the hundreds of stories, if not thousands, there are in this region to be told. These everyday Americans, which are the backbone behind the cleanup duties here, the support that they are giving, the faith that they all hold. And we're going to continue to bring you these stories as we continue to report here throughout the rest of the week. Back to you guys.
Newsmax's Sarah Williamson in Kerr County, Texas. I lived in Texas for several years, and you've often heard me say the great state of Texas. Plus, my wife is from Texas. But what makes Texas the great state of Texas is the people. As Governor Abbott said, they're helping and not going anywhere because they're Texans, some of the greatest, most respectful people in the country. The White House said aside from meeting with the governor and other state and local officials, the president and the first lady will be meeting with families of some of the victims as well. It has been difficult to report on this all week. What a tremendous, tremendous tragedy. Meanwhile, this weekend, the president, the country, the world actually, will be reflecting on the one-year anniversary of the Butler, Pennsylvania assassination attempt of President Trump. Yes, it is hard to believe that it has been a year already, and it's still chilling to think that if the bullet was an inch, a half inch over, if the president didn't turn his head right then, it would have been a very different year, right? More from Carl Higbie.
Something we're just finding out about today, that 6 Secret Service agents have been suspended 2 days shy of a year after Trump was shot in the ear. Remember, the director of Secret Service, Kim Cheadle, took 10 days to resign after this. Why wasn't she fired that day? I'm sorry. If the president gets shot, the head of the agency gotta go. Mission failure. And if Trump hadn't turned his head at the very second, I mean, look at this animation right here. It would have been an even bigger failure. That's the only reason Trump didn't die, because he went to look at his chart. But there were more than a dozen failures in this, any one of which would have likely stopped this from happening if they had carried out just one of those. Look, I have worked on presidential security teams. That's me on one right there. This is when I was a SEAL for Bush. Things can be hectic sometimes, but what happened at Butler was ridiculous. And just to remind you of how many failures this took to make possible, I almost, and I'm not going down that rabbit hole totally, but there are enough failures to make you consider all kinds of theories here. The number of unanswered questions that I'll get to in a minute led me to think that there is a lot more to this story still than some ratty little picked-on kid who just decided to go up on a rooftop and shoot at Trump. Like, who the heck is Matthew Crooks anyway? We know shockingly little about this dude. Why did he have multiple phones, some of which were encrypted? Where did he learn how to make bombs with a remote detonation capability? And why was he not flagged by getting the explosives? I have to show a permit to buy ammunition in Connecticut. How come no one flagged that he was looking at the very distance that Lee Harvey Oswald, allegedly, for my conspiracy theory pals, was the distance that he shot Kennedy from? What were the foreign apps on his phone? No answers to any of these things. But the biggest failure was by the Secret Service.
The Secret Service is totally accountable for Butler. Butler was an operational failure, and we are focused today on ensuring that it never happens again and executing our strategic plan to increase technology, to improve communications, to make sure our personnel are well-trained, equipped, and deployed. We are laser focused on fixing the root cause of the problem.
Pretty sure I know what the root cause there. Look, I know a bunch of Secret Service agents. I'm good friends with the family, okay? Great group, but this advanced group and some of the people on his protection detail that day, not so much. You'd see this woman can't even put her gun away. This was all part of this DEI push. They should reassign all these DEI types to Obama and Biden's detail. Here, you guys made this problem. Here you go. This is your protection detail. Have a nice day. Another one on stage was a foot shorter than Trump, too. Okay, look. I actually personally know this agent. She's great. She's a great shot, pretty squared away, but she's a foot shorter than him. That's not her fault, but not even covering the part of Trump that was shot at. The fact that no one on the detail was thinking about this prior is a real problem, folks. Stack that on the fact that there was this failure to secure the building that crooks took the shot from. Secret Service said, oh, it was outside the perimeter. Who made it outside the perimeter? It should have been inside the perimeter. That was the first failure. But the building was like 125 yards away. That's like a 9-iron shot from someone as bad at golf as me. Folks, as a SEAL, this distance is a layup shot. I have made shots like this standing on night vision in the middle of the night around a corner while getting shot at. It's a miracle that this dude missed Trump. Apparently, there were all kinds of line of sight. Oh, meetings all week during the advanced planning. I mean, come on, guys. This isn't corporate America. It's not office space with like TPS reports. This is presidential security. Meetings should have results and actions, but they didn't in this case. The other failure, and this is multi-pointed, communication. The Secret Service just assumed that local police and their snipers would cover this area, but apparently never confirmed that. Oh, oops, we forgot to ask if you guys would be doing our job for us. You think I'm being hard on the Secret Service here? I hope that's coming across, because this was not only a top-down failure, this was an agent failure. Every single one of these agents should have raised that question and then not put their protectee on stage if they were not answered. In 2007, when I was in Iraq, we were having a closed-door briefing. There was this whole plan about how we were going to infill and hit this target, clearly thought up by a bunch of veteran, really good team guys. Everything was perfect except one thing. And the only reason I picked it up, I was the lead driver of the lead Hummer. Okay, so I'm looking at the route in. I'm a brand new guy, been in country for like 4 weeks. This is my first deployment. So I'm like nervously raising my hand so I don't get my butt kicked by the older guys. Then said, hey, Chief, this infill route only has one way in and one way out. It's a few hundred yards from target. It was literally set up as an ambush point where the local militia had piled up cars for around every other entrance and exit. No one on my team had looked outside the quarter-mile radius. My point is, everyone will see something different. I just happened to see it that night. Just happened to. And thank God I did, because a week later, a Stryker convoy got hit in that exact same spot.
That is former Navy SEAL Carl Higbie, host of Frontline. This was also the focus of Greg Kelly Reports.
You've heard about the pathetic response by the Secret Service. In the aftermath of what happened, they did nothing. They obfuscated. They outright lied. And now, finally, almost a year later, accountability? Is this accountability? It's an insult. Take a look at what they finally decided to do. Suspended without pay 6 Secret Service agents for the failures at Butler. The suspensions will range from 10 days to as much as 42 days. And when they get back from those suspensions, the agents will then be placed in roles with diminished operational responsibility. President Trump, of course, was almost assassinated that day. Does this seem adequate? Folks, I know we like the Secret Service heroes, but you have to be competent as well as brave. This was gross negligence, which is tantamount, quite frankly, under the law. The negligence was so bad that it might have been intentional. We're talking, 42-day suspension? Anybody remember Brian Williams? He was the anchor over on NBC News. He had his strong points. He had a sense of history, but like a lot of people on air, he was a bit pompous and a little bit carried away with himself, and he told tall tales. He kept telling this story about how he was shot down in Iraq in a helicopter. Turned out not to be the case, and they found out, and he was suspended from NBC for 6 months without pay. The fake news disciplines their people stronger than the government failing a president, and not only a president, Corey Comparator. He was murdered that day, wasn't he? This is a name that doesn't get enough attention. I am so glad that Mrs. Comparator is speaking out. We've heard from her before, but I don't think we've heard from her quite like this. It was an important message, and we all need to hear it.
Why weren't they paying attention? Why did they think that roof didn't need covered? I can see it. You can see it from the farm show. Why would they let the president come out? Why weren't they watching? I'm angry. I lost the love of my life. My kids lost their father. They screwed up.
She's talking about the Secret Service. The question was, what would you tell the Secret Service? We can't just say, well, these are brave men and women and maybe some mistakes were made. This was far worse and far more sinister. What happened in the immediate aftermath? The director of the Secret Service was caught lying on national television. She outright lied about that sloped roof nonsense and why they didn't have anybody on the AGR building. And when confronted by lawmakers, she ran away, literally ran away. That's Marsha Blackburn following her, trying to catch up with the running away Kimberly Cheadle, Dick Cheney protege, by the way, ran away. What else did they do, the Secret Service? There was a lot of bureaucratic double talk, right? Fast-talking bureaucratic ease. They hoped nobody would understand, and by the time they figured out, well, everybody will have moved on. That's an old swamp trick. Also, indignation. How dare you question the men and women of the Secret Service? Well, we actually wanted to question the Secret Service that night, July 13th, 2024. Everybody showed up. The FBI, the sheriff, the state police, everybody was there, except the people responsible for that day, the Secret Service.
Why are there Secret Service agents here right now for this press conference?
So Secret Service wasn't available for the press conference at this time.
Why not? They were getting their stories straight. It took over a month before they had an actual press conference. It was crazy. A transparent country. Give me a break.
Greg Kelly reports 9 p.m. Eastern on Newsmax. If it took the Secret Service a month to have a press conference about an assassination attempt of the president or a presidential nominee at the time, think about what we have been talking about all this week, right? How long will it be until we hear from the FBI on the sudden disappearance of the Epstein client list? I said at least announce, I've been saying this since Monday, that we needed to hear from the FBI or Attorney General Pam Bondi or both, but I said yesterday, at least announce when there will be some kind of an announcement, some statement coming, give us something. And so far, nothing. Greg Kelly mentioned Trump supporter Corey Compertor, and I'm glad he did. Corey was killed at the rally. You just heard from his wife. Let's not forget the other two people who were severely wounded that day as well. And we still don't really know any more about the shooter and the shooting today than we did a year ago, except that all of a sudden 6 Secret Service agents are suspended. Wake Up America spoke with author Salena Zito, who wrote a book about the attempted assassination, and what she says about the president is pretty amazing.
Salena Zito, she is a national political reporter for the Washington Examiner and also author of the new book, Butler, The Untold Story of the Near Assassination of Donald Trump and the Fight for America's Heartland. Love the title there. Can you tell us about your experience that day?
So as a reporter, you always expect that whatever you planned that day is probably going to not happen. And that's pretty much what happened for me. And I was supposed to interview him 5 minutes before the event, then 5 minutes after the event. And then the reason I'm in the buffer is because the team decided that I was going to fly to Bedminster with him and do the interview on the plane. And I remember watching him turn his the chart come down. And I had only talked to him 4 minutes before he went on the stage. He wanted to say hello before he took the stage. And I remember that chart coming down and thinking, what, does he think he's Ross Perot? He never has a chart. And then he turns his head. He never turns his head. The relationship between Trump and the people attending his rallies is very transactional. It's a very emotional connection. And he turns his head, and that's when I hear the first 4 shots. Go ahead.
I mean, Salena, the thing that the whole thing is remarkable, but the one thing that really struck me about your book was that the president called you the next day. And obviously, as someone who knows the president well, used to work for him in the first term, it's so typical Trump what he actually said to you.
Yeah, the first thing, so he ended up calling me 7 times that day. But the first thing he said to me in the morning was, Salena, it's Donald Trump, right? Like I didn't know it was him. Are you okay? Is your daughter okay? If you look at the cover, my daughter took the photo for the cover. She's a photojournalist. Are you okay? And gee, I'm so sorry that we didn't get to do that interview. And I did something I shouldn't have. I swore like a truck driver and said, are you bleeping kidding me, sir? You've been shot, not me. But we would go on to have 7. He called me 7 times that day. Very powerful, very emotional talks, not really interviews. And one of the most striking thing, and I think we see this today, and we saw this throughout the year, that's why this book is so important, is that he made that decision to say fight, 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 not for him, but because he said, I represented the presidency of the United States. I had an obligation to show strength so that people wouldn't be afraid and that the country goes on. We are resilient. And I thought that was so powerful. And I think that led to there not being a panic there or not being a panic in the street afterwards, which could have easily happened.
Oh, absolutely.
Charlotte McBride and Mark Lauder on Wake Up America with author Salena Zito. The book is simply titled Butler, a day after being shot in the ear, almost losing his life. On the cover of every newspaper and TV around the world, Donald Trump called her several times that day, the next day, to see if her and her daughter were okay. If you pay close enough attention, you hear a lot of stories like that about President Trump. I remember hearing Robert Kraft, owner of the New England Patriots, friend of Donald Trump, right? Longtime friend of the Trumps, said that after his wife passed away, Donald Trump called him almost every day for almost a year to see how he was doing after the passing of his wife. Another development this week that will be talked about all weekend on the weekend talk shows is the investigation into the Trump-Russia hoax. This from yesterday's Chris Salcedo Show.
Former FBI Director James Comey and former CIA Director avowed communist John Brennan facing an investigation for their roles in the falsely predicated and, I say, illegal Trump-Russia collusion hoax. They pushed the fake Steele dossier. They lied to a FISA court multiple times, and then they lied to Congress to smear President Trump. The FBI is exploring their conspiracy to manipulate intelligence and target Trump as exposed by CIA Director John Ratcliffe's declassified review of their 2016 scheme. Former Trump 2016 foreign policy advisor and Newsmax contributor and victim of the Trump-Russia collusion hoax, George Papadopoulos, joining me now. It's good to see you, sir. You're on record saying this is an airtight case. Explain why.
Yes, Chris, thanks a lot for having me. The reason I think this is an airtight case is because let's look at how this entire process has evolved. We've already seen 4 different investigations into Russiagate, from Comey's Crossfire Hurricane to Inspector General Horowitz to Mueller and then John Durham. That included 2 special counsel investigations. With all of those facts and all of those different investigations, we now have 2 criminal investigations into CIA Director Brennan and FBI Director Comey. This is unprecedented. Based on the high-level notification that the Washington Times and other news outlets, including Newsmax, have done by giving this information out there right before the midterms, I think that the only way you could have potentially brought this type of headline is if there was an airtight case. Nothing else would make sense. I think they have the goods on both of these people. And the only way that they do have this criminal investigation ongoing is because there was probable cause and an adequate predicate that Patel and Ratcliffe have already found.
In my opinion, Obama, Clinton, and members of the corrupt Obama regime launched a falsely predicated investigation that was determined later that no evidence existed to justify it, only a desire to use the awesome power of the federal government to remove one's political opponents off the field. As mentioned, they relied on the Steele dossier, they relied on hearsay and leftist foreign operatives. Then they spied on President Trump's campaign. Watch.
The biggest scandal was when they spied on my campaign. They spied on my campaign.
There's no
Leslie.
real evidence of that.
Of course there is.
No.
It's all over the place. Leslie,
Sir,
they spied on my campaign and they got caught.
Can I say something? You know, this is 60 Minutes, and we can't put on things we can't verify.
You won't put it on because it's bad for Biden.
We can't put on things we can't verify.
Leslie, they spied on my campaign.
Well, we can't verify
It's been totally verified.
No.
As you can see, 60 Minutes bias goes way, way back. Leslie Stahl and others in the left-wing press would push this hoax as a precursor to their pushing the real big lie, hiding Joe Biden's mental and physical impairments.
Chris Salcedo with former Trump 2016 foreign policy advisor George Papadopoulos. And as Chris said, the victim of the Russian collusion hoax. He eventually pleaded guilty to making false statements to the FBI, was sentenced to prison, later granted a full pardon by President Trump. With all the renewed tariff talk today, the stock markets opened in the red, the Dow off about 250 points as I speak, after the S&P and the NASDAQ closed at new all-time highs again on Thursday. Airline stocks are flying high today after Delta posted a bigger than expected profit yesterday, beating analyst expectations and giving other airlines hope, I guess. And Walmart has recalled hundreds of thousands, 800+ thousand Ozark Trail stainless steel water bottles, specifically the 64-ounce insulated bottle. Again, that's the Ozark Trail stainless steel bottle. If you're drinking out of one of those, return it to Walmart. And what about Bitcoin? Holy smokes. If you follow me at radio_Marino on X, I posted several new highs yesterday, and it's still going. Currently at 117,800. That's up from 112,000 yesterday. All right, be sure to keep up with all of today's news and breaking developments today and throughout the weekend on Newsmax N2 and at newsmax.com. The news starts each and every morning with Wake Up America. Don't forget about Wake Up America Weekend Edition, Saturday and Sunday. National Report, Newsline at noon, American Agenda, The Chris Salcedo Show, Greta Van Susteren at 6, Rob Schmidt, Finnerty, Greg Kelly Reports, and much, much more. Then there's the Saturday and Sunday Report, Saturday and Sunday Agenda, America Right Now, Wendy Bell, Michael Savage, documentary, special programming, and so much more. Thank you, as always, for listening to the Newsmax Daily. I appreciate it. Continue to share it with friends, family, and anybody else. I'm Tony Marino. Enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy your free Slurpee or free fries, whatever you may do. And keep on fighting the good fight.
News breaks every minute, every day. You need the app, the Newsmax app. Find it free on your smartphone store. Then watch us anytime, anywhere.
Information. Truth. Is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.